Contact. 70 clicks off Siren's orbital decay belt. No escort, no thermal print. Dead freighter. Security Director Vern Trask didn't blink. He leaned closer to the glowing interface, its outline flickering against the curved visor of his tactical helm. His breath left thin halos on the inside glass. The chamber buzzed with quiet tension, data streams coiling like vines across the central display. They'd been watching for smugglers, maybe a rogue data ferry, not this. The vessel floated askew, its dorsal stabilizers long melted into slag. Paint peeled from its hull like ash falling upward. No ID beacon, no running lights. Only a silent drift, pulled by Sirenth Station's dying gravity. "Scramble a boarding unit," Trask said. "Bring back whatever's breathing." "No life signs, sir," the technician answered, fingers sliding across the laser interface. "Internal atmospheres holding, just static." Trask's jaw tensed. "Static where?" "Deck 4, cargo hold. One ping, weak, but it's rhythmic." Trask turned, heartbeat, a second's pause, then, could be. He didn't like mysteries. Not out here, not this close to the border swell, where jurisdiction blurred like old ink. The boarding craft hissed out from the hangar, minutes later. Beneath Sirenth's fractured moonlight, the freighter loomed like a ruptured coffin. Boarding lights cut through the pitch. The outer doors yielded with reluctance, not resistance. It was as if the ship expected them. Inside, silence clung to every surface like a skin. No sound, no movement, only scattered crates, overturned tools, the scent of stale lubricant, and heat from dying circuit clusters. In one corner of the cargo bay, where old freight containers sat slouched like forgotten relics, a small figure lay curled against a wall. "Eyes on human, I think." The sergeant's voice crackled through static. "Boy. 10 years, maybe less. Alive." The child didn't move as they approached, his face buried beneath the collar of a scuffed exocoat. His hands were scratched raw, grime etched into the nail beds. But what arrested the sergeant wasn't the injuries. It was the insignia, a metallic plate soldered into the child's chest plate, pulsing with low-frequency light. A Terran glyph rotated slowly across its surface, unreadable but active. "Get that thing off him," Trask's voice barked through the channel. "We've tried. It's fused. Biological seal, won't respond to tools or signal queries." The boy stirred, one eye opened, bruised, but alive. He looked at them not with fear, but with something else, like he had already measured them. When they tried to speak to him, he didn't answer, not in any galactic dialect. He just whispered in soft, broken syllables, language untranslatable by the on-board heads-up lexicon processor. None of their systems recognized it. The Dominion brought him back anyway. Days passed. Council Report #7831 DIN, a set analysis specimen, Terran juvenile, male, est, age 9, no identification match, chest plate embedded with unknown encoding, non-reactive to Council signal infrastructure, non-compliant, subject exhibits irregular biological silence, no pulse flux under interrogation, extreme resistance to standard trauma mapping protocols, language unlisted, recommended status, unclassified asset, minimal threat, reassigned to Dominion, interrogation core line, proceed with broadcast clearance, no diplomatic backlash expected, Earth classified as dormant political entity. Inside a gray-walled cell beneath Dominion's data tribunal on Sindar Outpost, the boy sat unrestrained. Surveillance feeds ran constant, some seeking weakness, others waiting for confession. Analysts combed every frame for micro-expressions, biometric spikes, telltale signs of fear or conditioning. Nothing ever surfaced. The technicians grew impatient. "Try a resonance loop," suggested Harn Varen, a trade oversight liaison, who was there only to report compliance. "He hasn't flinched once," one technician muttered, adjusting the headgear. "I've seen cargo bots show more reaction." They played him distress pulses, inverted light strobe tests, memory bleed injections. Nothing breached his stare. He blinked rarely. When he did, it was always after a long silence, as if he were syncing with something invisible. Eventually, they opened the feed to the Council broadcast network. The interrogation, now public, was framed as an exercise in identifying Terran infiltration protocols. Dominion's message was simple: Earth is obsolete. Their secrets will be harvested. Their silence means surrender. The boy bled beneath white lights. Still no scream, no word they could translate, just fragments, soft, repetitive. Varen stood in the observation tier, arms folded. "It's just a kid," he muttered. Trask stood beside him, watching the same monitor. "No, he's something else. Look at that chest plate. That seal hasn't blinked once. I've never seen a Terran device hold that stable outside their atmosphere. You think he's a plant? I think he's a switch." Varen exhaled through clenched teeth. "You're not logging that, are you?" Trask didn't respond. Back in the Dominion archive, Surin Vask, junior diplomatic analyst, sorted old treaty files. On a half-faded slate, beneath lines of outdated trade code, he found a curious notation: Nemoris Directive, entry seeding compliant, biological key, tier lists, directive lock, echo trigger, no response required. He blinked. The file didn't belong. It wasn't even from a Dominion server. It bore Earth's watermark, black ring, 7-pillar glyph, flanked by extinct star maps. He checked the origin date, 41 years ago. In the orbital ring above Sindar, communications traffic continued unabated. Trade ships rerouted. Patrols cycled back through known channels. The interrogation feed continued looping, reaching over 79 planetary sectors. Analysts called it proof of Terran irrelevance, a psychological victory, until 23 hours later, one minor relay station, outside Dren Volari, blinked offline. No alarms, no interference, just static, then another, and another, each one previously built by Terran terraform subcontractors. Old contracts, forgotten names, but inside each of them, nested within the firmware, a string flickered once, then buried itself. Lys Kappa 4. In the Dominion control tower, Trask stood alone, reviewing the latest footage. The boy's face appeared again, frozen in the feed. His lips moved. No sound, just one repeated word, not gibberish, not meaningless, just misunderstood. He leaned forward. The glyph on the boy's chest flickered. Not a boy, he thought. An instrument. Something in Trask's stomach shifted. The kind of knowing that made his lungs tighten without cause. He turned to the console. "Get me the last clean scan of that insignia," he said. The technician didn't answer, because the technician's slate had gone dark, and across the control tower, every backup light had just turned amber. Low power status. System reroute initiated. The feed cut. "Feed's already live. Don't stall." The words came clipped, sharp, sliding from Dominion officer Carr's mouth like ice cracking against glass. His eyes didn't blink as the countdown ticked toward broadcast. 6 seconds. 5, 4. Beyond the reinforced chamber glass, the child sat upright on the interrogation chair, not strapped down, not bound, just still. A bright pulse swept the room as the feed locked onto global distribution. Across 37 trade sectors, laser plasma displays lit up with the Dominion crest, followed by a rotating glyph sequence indicating live tribunal coverage. In merchant bays, in low-gravity food ports, in casino halls orbiting volcanic moons, viewers leaned closer. In the broadcast center, silence swallowed the control crew. The camera narrowed its frame. The boy's face appeared, half-shadowed, jaw rigid, eyes vacant. A thin rivulet of dried blood traced the edge of his scalp, where sensor nodes had already failed. He had not spoken, not even to cry. Technician Lurith Jek gestured to initiate voice loop mapping. The translator display blinked amber. Unregistered phonetics detected. He frowned, tried again. Same result. Carr exhaled. "We gave them the chance to explain. Now we extract." The room lights dropped. Only the chair remained lit, spotlighted, sterile, inhuman. From the ceiling descended a thin ring of probes, each ending in slender filament tendrils. They hovered just inches from the child's spine. Still, he didn't move. Across the galaxy, trillions watched as the Dominion's most advanced interrogation unit failed to elicit even a twitch. Inside a repurposed trade chamber on Vale Coreline, Harn Varen stood surrounded by merchants and naval vendors. He was the only one not seated. The broadcast played across a wall-spanning heads-up display, its resolution too crisp to dismiss. The boy's voice, if it could be called that, came again, unintelligible, almost melodic, stripped of fear, no anguish, just pattern. Harn leaned closer, mouth tightening. This shouldn't be public. A nearby trader scoffed, chewing on dried resin. You're worried about optics now? You ever seen Earth raise its hand in the last decade? Let the feed run. Maybe it shakes out something useful. On screen, the child's left eye rolled upward, not from pain, as if following a rhythm. At that moment, one of the probe tips flared, its strand recoiling like it had touched a sunspot. Sparks spat against the tiled floor. The technician's fingers froze above the input pad. Feedback spike, he muttered. Carr's tone dipped. Was he shielded? No. Pause. He's ignoring the input. It's not even reaching his neural grid. It's routing somewhere else. Show me. The tech loaded a new display. Nerve tracers mapped across a wireframe of the child's body, lighting nodes from brainstem to fingertips, except the usual pain centers never lit. A new route showed instead, looping from the chest plate seal through a region beneath the ribcage marked UN known. It's a relay, whispered Jack, but we don't know what it's sending. Carr turned toward the display, jaw clenched. Then we escalate. Without signal, without warning, the chamber doors sealed. Every viewer saw it. Every sector tuned in, witnessed the Dominion override protocol go active. Background sounds dropped. Even breathing from the feed room seemed to cease. The child blinked once. Needles extended, not gently, not surgically, but with the precision of someone trying to crush an insect beneath glass. They entered his skin in 7 places. No flinch, no sound. Blood followed, red against white. The Dominion sigil on the floor beneath him soaked it in like parchment. In a broadcast subroom buried beneath Sindar's eastern data spine, a junior analyst vomited into a receptacle bin. No one looked up. Even the senior officers didn't speak. Inside the main chamber, Carr leaned closer to the observation screen. I want the designation, name, origin, encryption key, something, or we dump him. Varen's voice crackled over the side console, unexpected. Cut the feed. This doesn't feel right. Carr ignored him. You're torturing a silent protocol, Varen snapped. Not a person. You think Earth didn't plan for this exact moment? That insignia on his chest isn't an ornament. It's a message. Still, no reply. The child's head tilted slightly, his lips moving. A technician gasped. He said something. Replay. The console looped the audio, no translation, just 2 syllables rhythmically spaced, spoken not with defiance, but with consistency. Varen exhaled hard. That's not a phrase, that's a key. Across Dominion Prime's transit hub, traders leaned back in their chairs. The feed hadn't cut. The camera stayed locked in place, as the child's pupils dilated. No scream, just one breath, escaping like fog through winter stone. And then, silence. The heart rate display flatlined. The translator flickered, then burned out. Literally, small trails of smoke threaded upward, before the display snapped to black. In the chamber, one of the techs reached toward the boy. His hand paused above the body. The insignia blinked, once, then again, slower. On the third blink, the chamber's lighting dipped, followed by a soft descending whine from the power regulators beneath the floor. The child's skin lost all color. The blood stopped moving. The body leaned just slightly, then froze. Vitals terminated, whispered the console. No known reactivation pathways. Varen stood alone in his trade office, watching the feed continue. There was no cutaway, no Dominion logo, just the room. Still, quiet. With the insignia blinking like a heartbeat someone forgot to silence. And then, a final line of text appeared across every laser plasma broadcast unit in the outer quadrants. No confession received. Subject terminated. Threat nullified. But Varen's eyes caught something else. A line of static ran beneath the official caption. He paused the screen. Enhanced contrast. Buried in the digital haze was a short glyph, older than standard code. It wasn't Dominion-made. It was Earth's, and it wasn't a threat. It was a confirmation. Outside, Sindar's sun dipped below the smog line. No wind moved. Insects, bred to chirp along terraformed rhythms, had gone silent. And far above, one orbital relay blinked twice, then stopped entirely. Varen finally spoke. We just buried our sector alive. Status update. Anything from Earth? The question echoed through the Dominion strategic broadcast node. bouncing off composite tiles that hadn't registered this level of quiet in 2 decades. General Norik didn't wait for an answer. His boots clicked across the ops deck as he scanned the silent heads-up feeds hovering above each console. No shift in Terran signal bandwidth, no diplomatic retort, no fleet formation near their exo borderline. Just that same static crawl from their global link, unchanged since the child's feed ended. You'd think they'd at least mutter something, he added, tone dry. Not even a complaint? That's disappointing. Technician Ural Dras glanced up, fingers stiff above the command pad. We've pinged them 32 times. All bounced, no redirects, no system delay, just termination notices. Immediate and final. Right, Norik muttered, scratching his jaw. It's that old tactic. Make your enemy wait until they're bored. Works well in folk tales. In the corner, the laser plasma wall fed them the final broadcast frame. Child slumped forward, Dominion glyph flickering red over his image. No sound, just that blink, then nothing. Elsewhere, scattered across 6 political spheres and dozens of resource partitions, a silence began settling that wasn't born from peace. On the orbital ring surrounding Drath Prime, Council Envoy Tarth Vivan leaned back in his station chair, a long translucent drink tube balanced between his thumb and cheek. You'd think they'd declare war by now, he quipped to the room of seated ministers. Maybe they're composing a poetic reply. Terrans always loved their drama. Chuckles followed. Even the Minister of Inner System Affairs smirked. Tarth turned to the nearest heads-up panel, cycling through diplomatic response channels. Every Earth-linked line flashed uplink discontinued. Node unknown termination code. Error NEM 97. He squinted. NEM, no one answered. Beneath his console, a junior aide marked the error sequence manually, unsure why the system wouldn't auto-archive it. The digits looked wrong, too old, as if they belonged to an entirely different protocol age. 3 floors below, tucked behind cold files and forgotten records, Tarn Belvos leafed through a digital archive binder barely used in decades. His desk, buried under maintenance logs and treaty dust scrolls, glowed from a single data slate still running a synchronization scan. The scan wasn't supposed to trigger, yet it had, because one line buried deep in the Treaty of Resource Allocation, Terran's subsection 14b had auto-flagged itself, not from a query, from Earth's silence. The clause read, Environmental Sovereignty Protocol, Nemorous fail-safe may be enacted in the absence of formal diplomatic channels following unauthorized contact or containment of tier-encoded entities. A single termination is deemed acknowledgement of withdrawal. The final paragraph had no signature. Instead, the Earth insignia pulsed faintly, like a beacon no longer waiting for permission. Belvos leaned back. He was not a political analyst. He monitored firmware compliance for agricultural payloads. This shouldn't be in his lane. And yet, the clause burned at the edge of his vision. It didn't say retaliation. It said completion. He stood, gripping the slate tighter. I need this forwarded to the Central Relay Archives, he told the node assistant. Secure line. Tag it, List Kappa 4. The assistant blinked. What? Just send it, now. Back on Sindar, General Norik paced the strategic command hall, growing more irritable by the second. The boy had died 2 rotations ago. Normally, Earth would have at least filed a jurisdictional complaint. Even back when they were passive, they communicated. Any movement? He asked again. Ural didn't look up. Same. Any trade shifts, fleet pulses, economic node spike. Earth's entire bandwidth spectrum has gone flatline. Not fluctuating. Not masked. Dead. Norik narrowed his eyes. That's not just withdrawal, that's intentional non-activity. Ural hesitated, then pulled up a side panel. There's something else. What now? 2 colony relay towers in Vale Segment 3 registered identity errors. What kind of errors? They tried syncing to Terran firmware. The response code was, rejection due to obsolete control channel. Obsolete? Yes, sir. The nodes read their own firmware as unrecognized. Systems they've used for 30 years. Norik's mouth hardened. Firmware doesn't mutate like that. They weren't updated locally. They reverted. To what? Ural swallowed. The root protocol, original Earth-seeded array logic. 39 years ago, in the corner of the room's environmental control interface flickered. For a split second, It displayed Earth's planetary encryption code, a black ring stitched around a triple glyph sequence, then nothing. Across the Council Central Headquarters on Sharntol, Tarth Vivan was now in mid-rant. If Earth wanted to fight, they'd have said so. This silence, it's performance art. Strategic sulking. They'll crawl back once we box them in. No one replied. Not because they disagreed, but because the main diplomatic link interface had just reset itself. In real time, no passwords, no override. It simply blinked out. In its place, a line of archived traffic logs began playing, messages sent from Terran delegations 4 decades ago, apologies, warnings, even a flagged treaty. Do not interfere with Terran biological assignments. Breach constitutes environmental response. Tarth frowned. Why would these messages return now? They didn't return, a systems aide said quietly. They were released. Later that night, on the surface of Karnith's third moon, a communications relay technician ran his scheduled diagnostics on a terraform uplink. The wind there wasn't real. It was generated by airflow oscillators buried beneath soil, imported from Terran development firms. As he adjusted the instrument's alignment, the central control node locked for the first time in his tenure. A glyph appeared, not one he recognized. It wasn't a threat. It wasn't even a message. It was an expiration notice. Atmospheric index breach on Vale, core line. Class 2 deviation. No storm signature. Confirm anomaly. The alert opened as a static line on the central terraform control registry. No audible alarms. No blinking warnings. Just a silent shift in the environmental analytics board. A decimal displaced. In the coastal sectors of Vale core line, seagrass wilted before the tide reached them. The water no longer lapped. It crawled, dense and laced with silent corrosion. Hydro index reports came in staggered, not rushed, because no one had yet connected the anomaly to intent. 1305. Reagent balance exceeded threshold across 33 aquatic domes. pH variances surpassed projected limits. No pathogen detected. 1307. Oxygen-rich layers condensed unnaturally. Gills of adapted marine fauna ruptured mid-spawn. 1308. All water purification towers halted. Internal logs showed no malfunction. Just a line. Parent authority, reinstated. Route directive Nislis Kappa 4. In Vale's administrative control tower, no technician screamed. They watched. Observed the rising data as the ocean's rhythm slowed to a syrupy churn. Algae banks liquefied into slush. The fish no longer fled. They simply floated upward, unbled, silent. In Karnith Prime's North Permafrost Ridge, a mining unit recorded a heat variance. The reading was dismissed as a reflection glitch from the twin suns. But when the second heat pulse arrived, identical in strength, 46 seconds later, they ran diagnostics. Thermocore layers, untouched for centuries, began to shimmer in geologic scans. 1323. Melt lines advanced in uniform arcs beneath the city shelf. 1324. Atmospheric readings held normal. Sky cloudless, unbroken cerulean. 1325. Temperature of bedrock rose without affecting surface metrics. Permafrost shifted state, solid to liquid to fume. Emergency regulators deployed. They locked. Their override keys responded. Sub-gravity dissolver active. Source verified. Lis Kappa 4. Still, the systems offered no panic response. Because panic required interruption. This was choreography. On Dren Volari, field analysts noticed something stranger. Terraform core regulators had begun realigning themselves. Manual input had no effect. The units rotated in sequences long thought deprecated, patterns matching Earth's original alignment standards from pre-unification. Inside an abandoned monitoring node near the Dren Basin wall, one of the original firmware consoles blinked awake. It hadn't responded to touch in years, and yet now, it pulsed a line of instruction in Terran glyph. Array compliance verified. Initiate sequence 317Z. The console clicked twice. The power relays beneath the basin turned inward, contracting their modulation fields. Water densities spiked. Aquatic pressure redistributed. Then, the lake's surface fractured like glass. No tremor, no quake, just calm implosion. In Council Archive Station Orvantel, Surin Vask received a string of synchronized reports. 11 systems, 11 types of collapse, none matching the others, yet timed down to the second, each traceable back 40 years to a Terran subcontract. Inside the archive's deep vault, he input the one code from the redacted clause, Lis Kappa 4. The console didn't reject it, it expanded it. A map unfolded, dozens of system names, every starport, dome farm, energy cradle built with Terran engineering. Each one blinked, not red, not green, something between, neutral, but waiting. He touched one entry, a terraform modulator buried beneath Yarnex 6, status, dormant, trigger, confirmed, outcome, irreversible, final line, Wasteland confirmation logged, directive path, Havran, Quell. Vask didn't speak. The floor beneath him felt colder, but only because the room's core had just gone quiet. All systems paused for exactly 9 seconds. Lights dimmed, not out of failure, but adjustment. Outside Yarnex, skies stayed blue, but the crops began to sweat. Under Averon 9's cloudfield reactor, the wind shifted pattern. Regulators, built to redistribute airborne nitrogen during storm cycles, reversed sequence, not violently, not fast, slow, controlled. The nitrogen drifted, denser pockets formed, then the oxygen layers collapsed beneath them. Not enough to kill, not yet, but enough that breathing became confusing. Birds dropped mid-flight, not dead, but disoriented. Infants cried without knowing why. Emergency towers initiated status checks. The replies returned blank. Every diagnostic unit now routed through a new core. Null state terraform node active. Source integrity verified. By 1410, across 46 distinct settlements, systems calibrated to Earth standards now belonged to something else. They followed no war command. Back in the Dominion archive, Tarn Belvoss stared at the update map. What had once been static had become a pattern, a living one. The kind that didn't evolve. It waited. In the middle of that lattice, pulsing calmly, was the child's designation. Not a name, not a person, just a line of instruction tied to environmental sovereignty. A cold agreement, breached. No enemies appeared. No diplomats arrived. No planetary shields activated. But the taste of air changed, and the sky, though clear, no longer felt shared. "Restart the damn grid, or we lose the hemisphere." The voice cut across the command deck like a snap wire. Sharp, direct, brittle from strain. Fleet Marshal Dreven ULL stood beneath a vaulted heads-up array as planetary diagnostics fractured in real time. Nodes blinked off in asymmetric patterns. Reconnection attempts failed before commands could reach their endpoints. Below on Yarnex 6, the sky fractured, not with color, not with light, but with rhythm. Clouds began to rotate counter to planetary winds. Lightning flickered inside air pockets, where heat signatures showed no storm. Streetlights dimmed and pulsed in opposing intervals. The oxygen curve dipped 2% in less than a minute. No sirens followed. Only silence as people stared up and forgot how to breathe. Inside the Yarnex Municipal Authority chamber, override panels showed no fault, just an error banner scrolling in pale green text. Terraform sequence deviated. Access revoked. Core logic rooted. Lis Kappa 4. At the Dominion Sector Response Center, 3 systems over, General Reth Norik pounded the control interface with an open palm. The screen froze mid-command. The restart key faded from the heads-up panel like frost under heat, melted before his eyes. "They're rewriting our own tools," he said, voice barely more than sand. Behind him, Yrel Dras tracked the spread. 31 systems now show recursive logic loops. The sequence mirrors Earth's original structure grid, but it's refusing us. Our control architecture's being overwritten, but not replaced. Recalled. Norik stared at a cascading feed, atmospheric conversion, aquasphere reversal, geothermal unzipping, each one different, all timed. "Nothing's hitting us from orbit," Yrel added. "These are all internal failures." All clean. Down in the Council Agricultural District of Merrick's Thicken, children dropped toys as the sky shifted from warm coral to a color no pigment could match. An iridescent haze that pulled moisture from their lungs. Soil became clay, then ash, then slick. Farming bots began planting backward. They buried seedlings upside down, their arms jittering with logic feedback. "Reset it," screamed one field agent through a comm that no longer transmitted sound. His slate pulsed 3 times before blanking. He looked around. The systems weren't failing. They were complying. Far above in Fleet Corps Yasari, Admiral Nethsar initiated full spectrum override. The command sequence triggered a blinking red ring, then nothing. The fleet's war matrix rerouted all external orders to default, then locked with a system root tag never seen before on Dominion warships. Firmware legacy alignment confirmed. Defensive functions reprioritized. SAR whispered. They took the firmware. We built around it, never audited the deep code. Earth didn't build weapons, they built expectations. Fleet commanders throughout Sector Theta launched vessels. No enemy waited, no threat presented itself. Their weapons systems rotated inward, scanning for foes that hadn't arrived. Fuel lines locked. Targeting interfaces looped, delay buffered by 3.5 seconds on every command cycle. Not disabled, desynchronized. In the city of Corin Vale, a civil engineer named Issel Thrain sprinted through the transit hub as ceilings cracked from pressure shift. The transport pods wouldn't unlock. The air inside tasted like dry stone and copper shavings. Beneath the station, artificial gravity thinned. People floated in confusion, then dropped, then floated again, intermittent, like a child tapping the concept of up and down against a table. An old woman coughed beside him. Her breath shimmered. He reached for her, missed, then felt the rails vanish beneath his feet. In Council Tower Vexstar, diplomats stared at the laser plasma display flickering through emergency readouts. Every attempt to issue system-wide reset codes ended the same way. Override denied, route directive locked, Vesper protocol active. Each screen, each station, each control unit bore the same glyph now, a Terran seal stylized into a sequence of 7 vertical lines intersected by a single descending arc. It pulsed once every 6 seconds, not red, not blue, just active. Find Havran Quell, muttered. Counselor Varkennen. He authored the Nimoris drafts. Maybe. He disappeared 7 cycles ago, someone replied from the floor. Last seen near Antarctica sub-tier 3. Earth sealed the archive. Above them the air vents halted. The sound of silence crept into places built for nothing but noise. Elevators stopped mid-floor. Water turned translucent in the lower levels, reflecting nothing but ceiling. Not faulty, clear to the atomic lattice. A technician ran from a side corridor, holding a slate burned into his skin. The override attempt had backfired, through heatsink delay. He collapsed as the medical drone failed to initialize. One diplomat vomited behind the council dais. Another tried opening the emergency channel to Earth. The line connected, but no one answered. The connection looped, then closed itself. In a rural home beneath the wind dunes of Valtran 4, a boy stared at a flickering toy on the floor. It played the same 2 notes again and again, without battery. He didn't know what was wrong, only that the adults had stopped speaking, and the walls no longer felt safe. They began to forget what normal had meant, not because they were afraid, but because normal had become obsolete, not taken, replaced. By the time the Council issued a Class 5 planetary rollback directive, 38 of its distribution stations had inverted their relay direction. The code bounced backward, deleted by the same systems that once helped terraform these colonies. Feed spike on Terran channel. Sector 9, barked the relay officer. It's inbound, no encryption, no handshake, just forcing entry. Across Dominion's global broadcast tier, every heads-up interface stuttered once, flickered, then turned black. Not offline, blank. Feed loop crashed. Uplink protocols refused restart. Then, without warning, every terminal in every known star network lit up in unison. No logos, no warnings, no audio, only a face. For the first time in 73 cycles, Earth responded. Havran Quell appeared. Not in military dress, not seated at a podium, not surrounded by delegation or insignia. He stood alone, arms behind his back, eyes unreadable, skin underlit by a control interface not shown on screen. The background dissolved into grayscale blur. No flag, no planet, no time. Just a man who had outweighted the galaxy. His lips moved, only once. His voice was low, textured with age but dry of emotion, and every syllable carried the gravity of a sentence, long delayed. The boy's name was Orvan Liss. You knew that. Then the feed cut. Across Karnath Corps' sky bridge, ambassadors froze mid-step. The corridor lights dimmed until skin tone faded to ash beneath pulsing emergency bands. The airflow monitors blinked red, then stopped showing values altogether. Staffers reached for console panels, now fused to their stands. Data ports rejected entry slates. The building exhaled, then held its breath. On Dren Valari's diplomatic promenade, a cluster of high-ranking strategists collapsed forward as internal oxygen density dropped 2 points. The climate control domes continued to show green status, but the sensors had stopped correcting inputs. They reported nothing, because they no longer cared who stood beneath them. In the Galactic Records Tribunal, Vask scrambled to replay the message. The console had already burned out, its screen spiderwebbed with fracture lines that didn't originate from physical stress. The entire interface registered 0 core temp, as if it had never been powered. A maintenance drone attempting a hard reset sparked violently, melted from the inside out, and dropped mid-rotation. Behind him, the walls dimmed, not from power loss, but because the light had simply ceased responding to commands. The message had lasted 6 seconds. The consequences had no such limit. Back on Yarnex 6, the agricultural archives froze mid-sync. Farming bots, previously running slow calibration loops, turned completely still, not broken, just uninterested. One attempted to reboot. It issued a reboot tone, then ejected its internal drive. The casing hissed before fusing shut. No tools could open it again. On Mirix 6, the Council's planetary vault, sealed for emergencies only, buckled without detonation. Not inward, not outward. It simply ceased cohesion, as if the atomic bonds had agreed they were done holding structure. Inside, 4 archivists had been preparing Terran compliance papers, treaties never signed. Their remains were never recovered. Only ash and pulp data gel pooled where the table had been. In the Varel Trade Nebula, 37 merchant vessels blacked out mid-run, all laser plasma logs, engine maps, and storage schematics, rewritten with a single glyph, Earth's seal, flickering 3 times, then fading into silence. Every ship attempted manual override. Every command returned the same message: directive complete, no retaliation initiated. Systems that remembered their maker and no longer recognized their borrower. On Council Moonier, diplomats shouted over each other in a room that no longer received external feeds. The Terran glyph still hovered in the air above the central dais, undimmed, unrequested, unmovable. An aide wept, then slumped unconscious beside a disabled ventilation hub. No message followed, no clarification arrived, just silence, and then one by one, the glyphs vanished. Not in a flicker, not erased, they receded, like tides, back into the firmware of the galaxy. Deep within Antarctica Sub-Tier 3, Havrin Quell stepped away from the console. No lights remained on. He did not speak again. The relay had fulfilled its function. The command no longer existed in his terminal. It lived in the systems now. No alarms sounded in his chamber. There was no evidence left of what he'd done, only the fact that nothing else needed doing. Beneath his feet, cold rumbled through reinforced stone, soft, steady, absolute. The gravity in the room felt heavier, though nothing moved. It was the weight of stillness after history changes direction. Quell exhaled, slow and final. His work was not reaction, it was design, and now the design had spoken. "File the closure," Havran Quell said. The voice recognition didn't prompt for confirmation. It knew the cadence, knew the tone that followed irreversible acts. The console screen, flush within a concrete slot of Earth's Sub-Tier 3 chamber, shifted to its final interface. No alarms, no dialogue, just a data slate with a single cursor blinking like a closing eye. He typed it himself, hands steady. Status log, Nimerus Tier 0, directive, fulfilled, no retaliation initiated. HQ. The entry synced automatically. Every node that mattered received it. Only once, only briefly. Earth's internal archival cloud scrubbed its own buffer immediately after. He stood back. The chamber's lights dimmed to the programmed threshold, 7%, low enough to disengage attention, high enough to find the door. Behind him, the final switch, a solid surface release coil, rotated 120 degrees counterclockwise. That motion sealed the terminal into the wall, fusing it behind an alloy plate indistinguishable from the surrounding structure. From now on, no one, not even Earth's own system stewards, would access the interface again. Havran didn't wait to watch it disappear. Footsteps followed him through the corridor, carved into the crust beneath Antarctic stability zones. No alarms ever sounded here. Because nothing broke, nothing intruded. Only things ended. The chamber door closed behind him. 400 tons of pressure folded steel into silence. No hiss, no rumble, just absence. He passed the final bioscan gate, retinal confirmation, blood match. One final bone conduction resonance check. The floor beneath his feet hummed once with warm vibration, then settled. The system knew who was leaving. He didn't look back. Above him, on orbital Arc 19, the last of Earth's self-contained processing moons, aligned themselves for gravitational sync. Their purpose had always been misread. Terraform, assisters, atmosphere stabilizers, labels distributed for comfort. Each moon housed a suspended core, layered compression rings that could unfold at will, not to explode, not to scatter, but to collapse inward. And at 1708 galactic standard, they did. The first folded, then the next. Not all at once. That would have implied panic. Earth had no need for spectacle. Each atmospheric moon triggered collapse based on local planetary velocity curves, timed perfectly to ensure internal detonation at zero surface disruption. One disappeared above Yarnex, another over Myerex, several from above the Veil chain, and the last above Carnith's outer ring. No shockwaves, no debris. Each one retracted its shell, ignited its inner lattice, and dissolved like a whispered signal, finishing transmission. The skies looked unchanged, but the balance of air, of thermal flow, of atmospheric response, none of it would return. In 31 minutes, 22 colonies lost the core process that made breathing possible. No one was warned, because no warning was required. On Draith's diplomatic barge, counselors gathered around a plasma console locked in inactive state. One aide whispered that Earth's systems might be rebooted. Another tried activating a handshake line with subnet relay 0. The screen responded with a symbol, red ring, single glyph, final timestamp, Lis Kappa 4 completed. No more glyphs followed. In Tarn Belvas's archive vault, the final line of the treaty he'd once uncovered blinked, then folded inward on itself. The document erased its signature line, not deleted, expired. He tried reading it again. The slate dimmed, cooling against his hand. Back beneath Earth's crust, Havran removed his gloves at the first transition point. The corridor smelled of sterile minerals and cooling circuitry. He passed a water reclamation node, its light band indicating complete efficiency. This section hadn't changed in 41 years, not since Orvin Liss had been approved. He didn't speak again. There was no report to issue, no summary required. The systems had done what they were built to do, observe an agreement, and act if it was broken. And it had been broken. Not disputed, not debated, violated. The child had died. The code had executed. And now, nothing needed to continue. He reached the final elevator, a gravity spool lined with silent fiber channels. As he stepped inside, the panel lit up only once. No destination was requested. The cabin descended slowly. Through reinforced glass, dark rock blurred into a deeper layer of core-synced shielding. No windows existed beyond this point. Earth didn't want to watch what came next. It had already seen enough, and so had Havran. When the door opened again, it revealed only a chair, a console with no keyboard, and a wall etched with the first line ever written into the Vesper protocol. Life requires consequence, not apology. He sat. Document everything. If we vanish next, someone needs to know why. Archivist then Varric didn't pause as he spoke. His hands moved across the cracked surface of a backup data array, rerouting collapsed files into what remained of the satellite uplink above Veltrack 12. The core systems had dropped minutes ago. No access, no input, only the auxiliary node held signal, and even that pulsed like a dying nerve. Above him, the vault's structural supports wept condensation from environmental flux. Filters whirled unevenly. One ticked like a broken clock. The air didn't feel poisoned, just thin, like memory was easier to breathe than oxygen. His colleague, Dras Nurian, reviewed the final telemetry from the planetary atmosphere processors. Otoping initiate status, void compliance lock lunar assisters, null trace habitability index, 0.002% terraform balance, uncorrectable, firmware host, unresponsive. Varric leaned closer to the head display panel. No signatures left. The moons didn't explode. They retracted. Nurian nodded, throat tight. Whatever they triggered wasn't meant to destroy infrastructure. It was meant to revoke it. Across 43 decommissioned colonies, analysts like them sat in crumbling archives, charting the disintegration of what they once governed, not through gunfire, not through fleets, through functionality loss. Every oxygen stabilizer had accepted new core input, then silently turned itself off. Not sabotage. Instruction. In the ruins of the Council Assembly Chamber on Year, cracks veined across the central dome. The ceiling's once reflective inner panels hung limp like peeled fruit skin. Beneath, 4 council members slumped across terminals that no longer registered biometric presence. An aide attempted a breath, then another. By the third inhale, the body didn't rise again. Above their seats, the last working laser plasma display blinked with one message: no retaliation initiated. Completion verified. It hovered for 7 seconds, then faded. In Sharn-Tull's diplomatic repository, a lone legal technician tried activating the galaxy-wide treaty archive. The system refused access, not through denial, but through expiration. Each clause flashed once, then collapsed into a time log. Every line now bore a new tag: irrelevant. On Vale Coreline, farming towers dripped black condensation down their mirrored outer shells. The crops, still standing, had stopped photosynthesizing. Their stalks remained green, but their roots no longer responded to soil signals. The fields looked healthy, but the scent was hollow, like carved fruit left overnight in a sealed box. No decay, no life, just stalled time. Children in learning centers blinked slower now, not from fatigue, from low atmospheric retention. Their eyes didn't register it as pain, just confusion, as if reality itself had missed a step. At the Karnath Cryo Weather Hub, storm patterns inverted, not clockwise or counterclockwise. They folded inward, like algorithms collapsing into themselves. The prediction models looped into recursion, and then blinked out altogether. Above the facility, clouds formed with nothing in them. Rain no longer fell, because the air didn't care to carry it. Councillor Strand Vayer, once architect of the Intergalactic Climate Oversight Treaty, stared at a slate that no longer connected to anything. His office, built from breathable stone and pressure-adaptive glass, remained intact. But outside, no wind stirred. The birds had stopped migrating weeks ago. No alerts ever came, only the silence of systems fulfilling old promises. On Orvan's ring, the final active satellite sent its last report at 1749 Universal Pulse Time. Final transfer: atmospheric drift, complete environmental nodes, non-compliant survival models, void file name, final breath. Then it shut down, not power failure, termination by logic loop. Inside the dormant Central Operations Control for Yarnex 3, 2 engineers, former brothers in rank, now custodians of failure, stared at a strip of control lights frozen in mid-cycle. The panel wouldn't respond to voice. The biometric pad gave no light. The room didn't feel warm or cold, just forgotten. Saren Ilor, head of Terraform Oversight, whispered, "We outgrew our maker," then forgot who calibrated the air. His partner didn't speak, because the truth didn't need agreement to function. Above Mirix Vix, one final heads-up beacon blinked 3 times. It sent no data, only alignment correction for orbital drift. Then its thrusters powered down. The colony's gravity dipped 1 percentile, enough that soil lifted slightly, just enough for people to feel like the ground had second thoughts about holding them. In Ural Dreya's personal report, scrawled onto a printed slate, not typed, he summarized the damage. Nothing exploded, nothing burned, nothing came. It all just left us. Systems don't rebel, they obey. And this was obedience. No further transmissions followed. Earth still breathes. The rest of us wait. The sentence closed the final transmission from Surin Vask, archived in an isolated relay buoy, orbiting the dead moons of Karnath Delta. No return address, no reply expected. He hadn't spoken for 3 days before he recorded it. They found the capsule drifting, slate wrapped in insulation cloth, embedded with a fragment of what once powered the Treaty Hall's climate shell. The audio ends as it begins with silence. Above where the council once met, artificial light arrays now flicker without cycle. The stars beyond shine untouched. No debris, no scars, just orbit paths once vibrant, now cold, home to satellites blinking in Terran glyphs. No species dares translate anymore. Not because they can't, because the last one who tried forgot how to breathe halfway through decoding. Below, on collapsed crusts and failing domes, ruins remain standing, not from strength but irrelevance. Systems no longer correct decay because the software no longer registers life as its directive. And in that stillness, myths take shape. On Drath's fractured observatory ring, someone etched a phrase into the viewing glass with a dull plasma stylus. The boy didn't scream. The stars did. Nobody claims to have written it. Nobody tries to erase it. From border colonies to core diplomatic remnants, scattered refugees whisper different names, but all recall the same face. A child in armor too heavy, eyes too still, a name they don't utter aloud, not because they forgot, but because the air doesn't seem to permit it. The glyph returns in strange places. Sandstorms reveal it carved beneath ancient stone tablets. It appears in ash formations after windstorms where no hands passed. Starships attempting long-range comms occasionally detect a pulse pattern. Always the same interval. 7 seconds on, 2 seconds dead, repeat. No ship has approached Earth since, not even to test a boundary, not out of fear, but because nothing answers. Quell's voice never reappeared. No further logs, no broadcasts, not even solar pingbacks from Earth's own planetary net. The planet simply remained, quiet, green, oceanic, rotating through day and night cycles, a world no longer participating in anything. But one thing did leave. A single Terran relay, unmarked cold black alloy, was launched decades later. No propulsion trails, no message header. It passed through known territories once every 29 rotations. Nobody intercepted it. On one occasion, it drifted close to Varkal Theta's refugee satellite cluster. A salvage team retrieved a fragment. Inside a single display, always on, a boy, sitting inside a freighter, mute, breathing. The loop never ends. Every second, the insignia on his chest pulses once. It never brightens, never darkens, just continues. Some say it's Orvan. Others insist it's a constructed loop, digital memory designed to anchor guilt to data. But the footage affects systems. Terminals around it slow. Languages unravel into unfamiliar syntax. Once a translator broke apart into disconnected glyphs that rearranged themselves into Terran legal phrasing. Protocol honored, request void. They destroyed the feed after that, but it never stopped broadcasting. Galactic law dissolved without trial. Trade networks faded. Borders disappeared. Not from invasion but from evacuation. Every colony that once relied on Earth's infrastructure now reports the same biological side effects: reduced neural rhythm, loss of sense tracking, audio distortion in echo chambers. No cure, no remedy, because the symptoms are not illnesses, they're reminders. In the absence of structure, cultures write stories, and now they write Earth as origin, not of life, but of judgment. In children's books passed between crater shelters and dome ruins, Earth isn't drawn as a sphere anymore. It's a circle with no core, just a border of glyphs. Teachers no longer tell what happened. They say we were warned. In some sectors the name list becomes a ward, whispered in firelight, pressed into ash tattoos, not prayed to, acknowledged. And the Terran seal, it floats still. 1 in every 5 abandoned satellites eventually projects it. Scientists measure the timing. Religious orders mark the dates. Pirates avoid anything that blinks in those rhythms. Even scavengers turn away, because the pattern never changes, and because they all remember what followed the last time Earth spoke. Above Sector Orvan Null, long considered unreachable due to gravitational disruptions, one probe finally returned data after 30 years. No signal interference, no obstruction, just silence. Inside the audio buffer, directive fulfilled, no retaliation initiated. It repeated once, then stopped. That was the last confirmed contact with any Earth origin device. In the center of what was once called the Council's sphere of order, lies a quiet belt of drifting environmental satellites, no longer owned, no longer aligned, just rotating, waiting, and every 100 days, one of them activates for 12 seconds. It plays a final scene. a child, no chains, no wounds, just watching. And as the frame zooms out, behind him, a command console sealed in alloy begins to glow red, only one word etched into its frame: do not provoke. The frame ends, and the galaxy forgets how to speak again.